Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Time at a Six. Today we got a special guest here. Today we got Gangish on the show. A lot of you in the genre probably already know him, but no one's really done a big extensive interview on him yet, so we're going to get right into that today. So how old were you the first time you got booked, and basically let us know how you grew up?
The first time I was arrested, I'm going to say the first time I was in handcuffs, I might have been 12. Stealing. A lot of stealing.
Yeah.
As a juvenile, just petty thefts.
Okay.
I didn't have the money to eat what I wanted, you know what I mean, or to wear what I wanted, or to, have the shoes that I wanted, or any of that. And I didn't have any problem taking it. If I could take it, I'd take it.
I get it. How much time have you done in total?
Probably 14 or 15. If I add up juvenile, that's adding up juvenile. Cause I probably did 4 in and out of juvenile group homes and things of this nature.
Speaking of 4, I know you did, we'll talk on this a little bit later, but I know you did 4 years in segregation, so we'll get on that in a little bit. I researched you quite a bit. So what states have you been locked up in, or any other places in the world?
Just California and Colorado.
Okay.
California only as a juvenile.
Right.
And then Colorado as a juvenile and as an adult.
Okay. Did you ever get into any substance abuse, pills, booze, or drugs, anything like that?
Sure. I started selling dope very young. I would say, okay, so here's what happened, right, is the homie went to California. He got invited to California by one of the other homies, right? And so he didn't want to be broke out there, so he was saving all his money, right? He saved up like $200. We were like 14, 15 years old. He saved up $200 to go out to California. Well, whenever he went out there, they wouldn't let him pay for nothing. They're like, no, we'll take care of it. The trip's taken care of. So he came back with all his money, right? And I said, well, we said, what are we going to do? We got to do something, And so we called up the homegirl, Angie B from Bloods, and was like, hey, man, we need to get put on. We got money. Put us on. You know what I mean? So we bought 2 ounces of weed and chopped it all up in like nickels and dimes and started hitting downtown Denver, and just selling nickels and dimes in the park. You know what I mean? And then he got a job because this is my best friend. He got a job. He's a little bit older than me. He was old enough to work. And then a couple months later, I got a job. And then we just started hustling, and selling weed. And within like a year, we had our own apartment.
Nice.
And by the time we did that, he started working at MCI. I don't know if you're old enough to remember MCI or not. It's an old phone company like AT&T.
Okay.
But they went under for being corrupt. And they had us working there as telemarketers at 15 and a half years old. You could go get a job as a telemarketer. So we started working at MCI, and then there was a lot of people like to play with their nose. And if there's a demand, I'll supply. You know what I mean? I got no problem supplying it. So I filled in that void, started selling powder, and that was at about 15. And then it was pretty much, I was in the game after that. You know what I mean? It don't stop. Once you learn how to sell dope, you're not going to stop.
Exactly. When you were growing up, what set did you claim or roll with or whatever?
I'm from a Mexican gang called Los Locos 13 from West Side 13th Street in Denver. 13th Street Wolves. It's actually a street corner gang. We have an actual street corner, 13th and Wolf. So it's the 13th Street Wolves. Brown Rag. We're clicked up with another hood called Mestizo 13. Mestizo 13 was a gray rag. I don't know if you get the reference to Mestizo. Mestizo is okay, so you have the indigenous tribes that were here, and then you've got the Spaniards that came and conquered them, and then you have the production of their offspring. The production of their offspring is a mestizo. what they would call a mestizo. So this was another kind of part of, we weren't the same hood, but we were very, very, very closely tied to them, to where the lines were, they're basically our homies. Put it that way. We're that close.
Okay.
Now, other than that, though, we had a special circumstance where the homie Faustino and the homie Willie, who were from my hood, their mother had passed on, rest in peace, right? And whenever she passed on, their older sister got custody of them, and she was married to a blood from Crenshaw Mafia, and so just by default, it was all of us living in his house, like functioning in his house. I didn't live there. I lived with my mom, but we all functioned in this house like kind of as little homies of the Bloods. You know what I mean? Even though we weren't Bloods, my hood's got nothing to do with Bloods, but when there's a bunch of older Bloods that are like the big homies there that are looking out for you, and you know.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you know how many places that you were in altogether, if you could count?
What you want to talk about? Jail? Is that what you're talking
like
about?
jails and prisons altogether.
You want to go juvenile or you want to go adult?
We can do both.
Okay, juvenile. We started at West Hills. That's in California. Out here in Denver, we got the Gilliam Youth Center. We've got Montview Youth Center. We've got Savio House. We've got there was some I don't even remember what it was called, brother. I couldn't even tell you what it was called. But it was some emancipation home. They were trying to emancipate me at one point because they said I was incorrigible or whatever. I wasn't listening to my mom anyway, so they're like, all right, we'll put you in an emancipation home, see if you can do that. I was in one of those. I was in a place called Arapahoe House. I was in and out of Gilliam several times. I got my GED actually in the Gilliam in juvenile jail. But that was pretty much it as a juvenile. So then as an adult, I go from Buny. I start in the Buny mods. I assault somebody like almost immediately. I end up in the high side of Buny. From there, I assault like 3 people in 6 months. They send me to the SHU. That's my first SHU term. I did like 18 months in Sterling SHU. They let me out onto the yard. I did a year on the yard in Sterling. They let me out to the street. I MRD'd, mandatory release date. They couldn't hold me any longer. I did 35 and a half months on a 36-month sentence. I got out, came back on a new case. I was out for about 90 days. I got caught. I got set up in a sting operation. They got me with 17 grams of crack bagged up for sale. They gave me a new case because I was already on parole. Sent me back to the joint. From there, I went to Walsenburg. I went straight to Walsenburg. I did almost 2 years in Walsenburg. That's where I learned how to box. From there, I went to Ordway. Whenever I got to Ordway, I only lasted on the yard in Ordway like 90 days because it's a very hostile yard to my gang. I really wasn't welcome, and it was just a matter of time. I went from there to Lyman. I went back to another SHU term because I set the yard off. I set a riot off over there in Ordway. They blamed me for that, so they sent me back to the SHU. I did the STG program, which is Security Threat Group. I did like 9 months in the hole, and then I did like 9 months in the STG program. They let me back out onto the yard in Lyman. I was there for about a year, maybe a year and a half in Lyman. This woman got stabbed in her neck. One of the power sewing workers, that's where I worked. I worked in the industrial sewing shop, making clothes and things of this nature.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
this dude tried to grape one of the female employees and put the pair of scissors to her neck and tried to take it. You know what I mean? There's a whole story behind that too. So that slammed us down, and the whole yard just kind of spiraled from there. There was a race riot and some other stuff. They sent me from there back to the SHU. They caught me with, there was a sting operation that happened. They rushed my cell. They found some stuff. They sent me back to the SHU after that. I mandatory release dated again. This time I did 3.5 years on a 4 because my first sentence was a 3. Now this sentence was a 4. So I did 3.5 years on that bid. Got out. I was on parole again. What did I do? In 2008, I went crazy again. Started selling dope immediately. I was plugged in already. I joined a prison gang. So by then I'm plugged in across the state because the prison gang was statewide. It was a Colorado prison gang. So now I'm plugged in across the state. I got out, started selling dope, doing the most. Trying to think what I got busted for in 2008. I kept getting parole violations. That's what it was. I would get out for like 4 or 5 months and catch a parole violation or something like that. So they kept sending me. But one time it was for a switchblade and 2 Dyson vacuums. She didn't like that. She was like, "You're selling dope or doing something," is basically what she told me. She's like, "You're up to something, dude." She's
those
like,
$500 Dyson vacuums, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that cost me a parole violation on that one. I ended up catching a couple different parole violations. They knew I was selling dope. Okay, so where did I go? I went on my first parole violation. I went to Burlington no, that's a lie. Because I paroled from the box, because I paroled from the SHU program, I was out for less than a year. And whenever you parole from the SHU and you're out from less than a year, it's a rubber stamp and they automatically send you right back to the SHU. So they gave me a 5-month turnaround on parole. They said, okay, we're going to remand you to custody for 150 days, right? And then they send me back and I get back in classifications like, you came from the SHU, homie. You're going right back to the SHU. So they send me right back. I did my whole turnaround in the SHU. And so that was just in the SHU. And so I got out again, MRD'd from the SHU again. Whenever I came back, I went to Burlington. And then I got my final violation. I went to CMRC, Cheyenne Mountain Reentry Center. And then that's whenever I really went crazy. They let me out. I was off parole. I was off everything, and I really went crazy. And then that's whenever I ended up on that high-speed chase, catching the case for the high-speed chase, and then I bonded out, and Dog the Bounty Hunter was running around looking for me.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then that, whenever they finally caught me after that, I got caught robbing a house. And whenever they finally caught me after that, I was like, hey, man, I've basically been like a lifetime criminal forever. You know what I mean? Could we try to help me instead of just putting me in prison forever? And the judge was like, yeah. They were like, we think, the judge basically believed me. She's like, you're right. Ever since I was a little kid, I just been in institutions and shit. And they just kept sending me to prison. Right,
and they never gave you no program to try to help you in there, nothing the whole time, right? Just keep throwing you back in there. So when you're in the hole for so long, for that long stretch period, right? Did you do anything when you're in there, like to keep yourself sane? Did you take anything or teach yourself anything like that?
I read a lot.
Read a lot, right?
Yeah, you read a lot, and you read, I would read like multiple books at the same time, and the reason why is because there's like, you'd be reading a story, right? But that story is like a story time. It's like a fantasy world. That has nothing to do with like, you know, like mechanics or engineering or history or nothing like that. So you can absorb two things simultaneously. You can read a novel for half the day and read a story and then pick up, you know, a history book. That's a different section. Like, it's kind of weird trying to read 2 novels at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trying to keep track of 2 stories.
I remember you saying something on one of your videos that you got the best haircut that you ever got. I believe it was in the hole. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you got an ice cream sandwich dipped in your coffee. What was your mind state like when you're eating that?
That's still a special day for me. It's really a special day for me because of what Brett Favre did, and I can remember tearing up. You know, he just absolutely put on a clinic that day. The couple days after his father died, I think it was 4 touchdowns and 380 yards on Thanksgiving Day, which was like 2 to 3 days after his father died. I mean, he just killed it, dude. And one of the things that the whole will do to you is you will learn to get in. Forgive me if I think I ate something earlier that's not doing me great. So if I do puke, please don't put my please don't put that on the internet, please.
No, I'll edit that out.
Yeah, I haven't been feeling good. I don't know what the hell I ate. That is one of the things that you will do is you will what are we talking about? We're talking about
the whole ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, is you will learn to get in touch with your emotional side. You have to.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I mean, I guess the other option is to eat your feelings, and I mean there is people who come out of the hole, and they're hate filled and rage filled, and I have my issues. Don't get me wrong, but I've done what I could to try to. To try to mitigate them but I still flash out at times. It makes you it plays with your emotions.
Right. And, I also find, because I've done quite a long period of time in the hole too, it was only a year, but that's still a long time in there. Sure. It kind of makes you where I wouldn't say it's like a crazy person talking to themselves, but it makes you have to be able to be a deep thinker and be thinking to yourself quite a bit. Like you have no other form of way to communicate unless you're talking cell to cell to your homie or whatever. But for a good portion of the day, you're by yourself, speaking to yourself, basically just with your own thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. So like I would literally make like little basketball rims and stuff like that just to like try to clear the time, do workouts and then like just shooting little pieces of paper at a basketball rim. And I'm just like, okay, 3 different dudes like to try to like play a game with somebody, but you're taking the other person's part more or less. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you're playing a game, but more or less you're taking the other person's part. Yeah, it's a lot, man. People that make it out of that and still stay mentally strong, that's really strong people that have made it out of that.
Homie, all I can say is it did a number on me, and I'm one of the least violent people that I've seen that did multiple years. You know what I mean? Most mm-hmm. people are much worse than me, and most people who do extended periods in there they have a hard time acclimating to the world. Mm-hmm. But they've realized, thank God that they've realized now that this was a mistake and that they shouldn't have done it. They've reversed course and they don't do this anymore. Turns out it's a bad idea to people in a cage for, like 5 or 6 or 8 years. And that's what they were doing. They were doing it as a classification